So I want to welcome all of you to class, and for some people that are joining today for the first time, we talked about we have done the first and the second class last week, and we're able to talk about feminism in the way that we understood it. From the Google Classroom, you can see that you can find information on what we've been talking about from the stream. This is where the stream is located. This is where you can see your classwork, and people are your classmates also, and Max. These two are open to me because I am the teacher. And so here you can follow all of the things that you need to get informed with this webinar. I have compiled the timetable here. So last week we did introduction to feminism, and we also did historical roots of black feminism. If you want to recap, you can go on YouTube from the link that is added here. I think I added the link somewhere. I would share it. Yeah, so this is the link. This is the link to watch today's class. So you would always get a video update on YouTube because a lot of people paid for this class but are nowhere to be found. And so today we'll talk about intersectionality, race, gender, and class, and then key thinkers like Buchi Emecheta, Fumilayo Rasokuti, and Chimamanda Adichie. We might intertwine it, but it is basically what we're going to be learning today and tomorrow. And so we have just four more. It's like an eight topic class, so we are going to have it this week and then we finish next 2 weeks. And so I want to welcome you again to class, and I hope that you can hear me and you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. We are going to start officially with what we have today. From last class, of course, we talked about waves of feminism and what feminism was from the first wave and the second wave, which spanned around 19th century and 20th century. That was for first wave, and for second wave was 1960s to 1980s. And now the timeline for Nigerian feminism is quite different from white feminism. White people have been fighting from 1880 or whatever, but Nigerian feminism began to gain structure from the late 19th century, and with second wave spanning around 1960s to 1980s. We talked about that. In second wave, we focused on liberation and fight against colonial and patriarchal oppression. That was what Nigerian women were fighting for during the second wave. They also were emphasizing on the intersectionality of race, class, and gender. And so if you go back to the Afro timetable, you would see that we're going to talk about intersectionality of race, class, and gender, and also the rise of nationalist movements that led many women to advocate for their right as part of broader struggles for independence. And so, as more nationalist movements came and they were fighting for independence and fighting for their rights, at that time they were mining oil from these certain places in the south, east or south, and then people were standing to fight. They also started realizing that women were also facing oppression with every voice that had fought for any social justice. It's like Toni Morrison saying that with every social justice or social cause that you pick that you want to fight for, there's always an oppressed woman in it. From climate change to poverty to there's always a woman having it worse, and that is why most of these structure began to gain focus when people fought for other social issues, and women were also part of it. And so third wave was between 1990s to 2000. This is a picture of the South African Nandi of the Zulu. And we, of course, talked about her story last week. We talked about how she was able to move from marriage to marriage. Some of you were in my live today, and we're talking about, oh, why would you have five daddies for five children? I mean, for five baby daddies. Zulu was like that. Nandi of Zulu was like that. She was first raped by a neighboring king, the son of a neighboring king, and then she made it her own terms to demand justice, and the justice that she demanded was for his family to pay thousands of goats and sheep and foods to them, and they did. and then she was betrothed to him by that act. And then she went to stay in this house and discovered that the house was not suitable for her. And then she left and then left her son there in Zulu. She went to another kingdom where she went and she found out that it was not suitable for her also. And she left and got married to a hunter, and she was gathering and gave birth. And she left and went. So she had a history of living places that were not comfortable for her. And that was one major respect that her story has in the significance of women liberation. It was in the same story that she realized that her son Zulu was not treated fairly, just like the way she was not treated. And then she had to go back and take her son. And together she was able to, teach the son how to hunt, how to gather, how to fight. And it's in that skill that that son learned that he became the powerful, warrior of the Zulu and begat the Zulu kingdom of the South African people today. And so he did it in the sense that when his mother died, which is Nandi, there was the great years of famine and appetite that he created because they had to reference his mother. And so he was so intertwined with his mother, he showed how much his mother was a key player in how his life was shaped. And so there were already women that were powerful women before the white man came and colonialism came. And so much of that was emphasized in the second wave of feminism. And so the third wave addressed global issues as gender based violence, economical empowerment, and education. And yes, from 1990s till 2000, more women began to go to school, more women began to work and be recognized in societies. We began to see that there became a partial inclusion of women in things that concern society. And so more of 1990s to 2000 was a third wave that fought against gender-based violence, economic empowerment, and education. Also, the establishment of networks and organizations that focused on women's rights alongside the rise of grassroots movements. More NGOs started to give rise to women that to women centered plight, to women centered oppression. And so we saw more of that in 1990s. And so cultural context will include recognition of diverse experiences of women across different cultures and classes within Africa. Exactly. Before print media and social media, more women did not understand how culture worked. In fact, women just understood their own culture and were supposed to act that way. But as more experiences began to come to limelight and more women talked about barbaric cultures, they became cultural exchanges, and these cultural exchanges began to lead to some banishment. They began to banish some rules and some cruel laws that were harmful to women, and so more of that came in 1990s to 2000. And so for fourth wave, which is 2010 till now, more women have been focused on digital activism and the use of social media to promote feministic causes. This is how you met me and how I met you. And you are here because you want to learn about feminism. And if feminism has not started and somebody has not talked about it and there was no history and there was no structure, you would not be enlightened to this point to be able to take a class. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, that's fine. Welcome, Frances. We miss you.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to find the
Nice.
right link.
Oh, that's okay. Always just go to the stream. Whenever you are lost, come to the stream and come to this place. I'm going to pin it. Let me see if I can pin it. I'll move it to the top.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
and you will find it here every Monday and Tuesday of every week. Kindly join via this link. And then if you
all
receive
right,
the email that I sent, you can star it. And so whenever you want to join, just go to your starred email and you can easily find the link there.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. We have not gone so far, so we can still talk. So we're talking about fourth wave feminism, which included the 2010s till present, and that's digital activism. More of it is online. More of it is women sharing their stories. More of it is women advocating for the right of feministic causes. And so the key themes is intersectionality, inclusivity, and a strong emphasis on cultural representation. More often than not, women have stood to say, my culture is this, my culture in that. But the unism that we have in all of these cultures is the fact that women are oppressed, and more women are calling for the right of women liberation through their various means, through their women's group, through phones, through social causes, through their churches, through the many groups that they have created for themselves to pass on this work. I remember my own mother being one of the pioneers of feminism movement in her own environment. She was a teacher. She believes in the right of education because she was educated, and she believed that education was one of the ways that took her out of poverty. And rightly so, she was not going to go to school. She was affected by the second wave of feminism. My mother went to secondary school between 1980s. And so because of that, at that time, women were not allowed to go to school. And my mother saw it firsthand that her junior brother went to school and she did not go to school. And at a time, my brother came and was speaking on something in English that she asked for him to interpret, and he refused. And my grandfather was standing there. He said, "Why would you refuse to interpret this to your sister in English?" And he said, "Oh, she should go and learn English." And my grandfather became radicalized at that moment. That why is the boy child going to school but the girl child not going to school, and is using it for oppression? He sent my mother to school. And in that very year, my mother learned, catched up with her brother, and became the first in her class. And so, because of that simple thing, my mother believed strongly in feminism, I mean, in education. And even though she was the first, the benefactors of the first wave movement, they were part of the second wave movement, I beg your pardon. Or let me even say first wave movement, because now if you check the timeline, the first wave movement was the 19 to earlier 20. Okay, second wave is the better word. She is between the 1960s and the 1980s, which is on liberation movement, fight against both colonial and patriarchal oppression, and the right to education, which is, you can see the influence, the rise of nationalistic movement that led women to educate for their rights as part of a broader struggle for independence. My mom was born after independence. Nigeria had independence in 1960. My mom was born in 1968 or so. And she said she grew up to realize that her society was singing Awanolawa. Awanolawa in Igala means now we get ourselves, we own ourselves. So this was a song that people sang and danced in clubs, and they celebrated that Nigeria had gotten their independence. And so because of that, education became free, and free in the sense that if you were a struggling parent and you lived in a place where there was education, you could access education. But the thinking at that time was that only boys could go to school and women could not go to school. And so, if you sent your own child to school and she was a girl, you were often criticized for wasting your money, or for wasting your time, or for losing a labor in your farm, because what else were you doing if not going to farm? You would have to go to farm with your father and your mother during the day instead of being in school. And so the radicalization happened for my grandfather, who sent my mother to school, and my mother went on from secondary school to College of Education to Teachers Training College to the University of Ilorin, where she did her master's in Nasarawa State, and she became a lecturer in Nasarawa State, did a principal, became a lecturer, then she graduated in school service management with the ministry before she died as a level 16 step 2 officer. And during this time, she was able to build school. She was posted to a government school at the time, and she had to tell herself, this structure of learning is so is so is, how do I speak it? It is not a good state of learning. She used her own personal money to build. And so I saw how she empowered her environment, in the sense that even in her own local church community, she never treated herself as a widow. My father died of politics when I was 5, and during that time till her death, she tried to remarry, but most of the men were nothing to write home about. And she did not look at herself as a widow who needed stuff. She was a widow that gave. She gave. She will come and pack your child. If your child is not going to school, she will come to the house, take your child, and say, "What is the problem? Okay, put him here. You can pay me small, small." And it's a government school. She did pay her with her own money for many children for them to go to school. And she did not stop at just schooling. She went to the grassroots, which is empowering women. From that time, which is the 1990s, till 2000, you began to understand that these women, our mothers, the very few women in our communities that impacted, that gave to women, that fought for the right of education, were part of the major movements of 1990s to 2000 wave of feminism, which addressed gender-based violence. More women started to speak about domestic violence during the times of our mothers, and we grew up seeing a lot of replication of men beating women, but women could not leave because of the structure and the dynamics of how it was at that particular time. Less than, if you go to your church, a lot of women had education, but more women were still uneducated. We still have the market women. We still have the people that, did not really do anything, that cleaned up, they were the cleaners. And you could see the hierarchical structure and the difference. The women that went to school had better economical power than the women that did not go to school. And more women that went to school had more position to give than the women that did not go to school. And more women that did not go to school did not have a power to live abusive marriages, power to train their kids. Only people that had the zeal pushed their children to good schools. They mostly repeated, oh, let them go to a government school. And so these few women who went to school during the second wave were able to push a movement in the 1990s to 2000 third wave feminism. I remember a lot of women in my church put their children in my school because in the school we were going to, because they were mostly wanting to emulate what the people that went to school did. And so their life and that emulation cannot be underestimated in how far fourth wave feminism came. And so this is a major influence, that more women use a grassroots movement. And that grassroots movement, they did not have technology. All they needed to do was reach out to their communities and reach out to their churches and their mosque and whatever religion they were using at that time to be able to save the little that they could save. And so, fourth wave feminism will be from 2010 to present, where digital activism, like what we are doing right now, is used as a form to promote feministic ideologies. We also have key themes like intersectionality, inclusivity, and a strong emphasis on cultural representation. We also have campaigns like the Me Too movement that shook the world, from lecturers to presidents to government agencies. They were Me Too'd, and we could see the unison in how men treated women. In Zimbabwe to Russia to everywhere that you want to think of, women have called men using the Me Too movement, and men were threatened by the Me Too. And if you go on a lot of platforms, men are still up and running in cases that they were Me Too'd. And so that movement was a rise in digital activism that showed that if women were united and we stood tall and we wanted to fight, we could actually break and eradicate some of these ideologies that men have held there to themselves that are harmful to women. We also have contemporary issues faced by women, including violence and educational access. So women have always used digital medium to be able to communicate. And so because of that, we have included sexual violence in this fight. We have included domestic violence in this fight. We have included emotional violence in this fight. We're able to now talk about individualism. Like, okay, we don't care about your money or your clothes, or why are you the person that you are? Most times women deal with narcissistic men, deal with unaccessible men that are emotionally inaccessible. And some of these talks also began to talk about trauma, began to talk about healing, began to talk about the restructure of the conditioning that men have been taught to be conditioned by society and by how they were brought up. I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Thank you so much. And so, moving on to key themes in Afrofeminism, which is very important. We have cultural identity, and cultural identity is the emphasis on African cultural heritage. We also have the reclaiming of narratives of African womanhood. Remember when we started this class, we're talking about what it was during pre-colonial era, what it was during the colonialism era, and what it is after pre-colonialism. And so reclaiming narratives of African womanhood would start from what it was pre-colonial era. What was the structure of a woman? You understand? And again, we are evolving. There's an evolving of culture, there's an evolving of language, there's an evolving of how we dress. The world is more unified because of capitalism. And so there has to be a shift in what we hold there in our cultures and in our religion and in our systemic structure that govern how we live day by day. We also have the social justice, which is advocacy for equal rights and representation, which is most of what we do today. And also, we have addressing issues like violence, poverty, and education. Again, we've always talked about economical power for women. It's one way that fourth wave feminism is empowering women. You have education, you have your resources, it is more easy to live a domestic violence situation. It's more of fourth wave feminism and digital representation that women use these days is more of the empowerment that we give women, and also the total rejection of poverty. It's like more women in poverty have shown, twice more assault cases, have shown more assault statistics than you would see for women who are educated. And this is because we have more knowledge, and we are tactical in how we address some of these gender based issues. And so, addressing issues like violence, poverty, and education is pertinent to our social justice. Why African cultural heritage and narratives of womanhood will fall under cultural identity. We also have economic empowerment. You cannot separate the two from each other. It's like when you fight for social justice, you must also include economic empowerment in the sense that what are the importance of women in the society? Women hold more than 40% of the economical grassroots, in the sense that when you go to the markets and then you go to places of trade, you will meet more women who run some of these petty businesses. And these petty businesses is the backbone of the economy. It means that the middle class can get access to cheap product, the lower class can get access to cheap product, the rich can also get access to cheap product. These people hold a large fraction of the economy. And so when they are not recognized, it is downplayed. And when it's downplayed, women are tended to be treated as lesser citizens than they are to a man. We also have support for female entrepreneurship and access to resources. More women need to do businesses. Today, we have seen a lot of startups that try to include women and focus on women-centered program, like, okay, these programs are for women, these programs are for girls, this we need women entrepreneurs, and some of these things address the gap that we have seen in how men are empowered and how women are also empowered. Do you have a question? Okay. And so, back to addressing this issue. On this blog, there's a gender equality in Nigeria saying, where are we 3 years since the country's Me Too movement began? You can find the blog here by just clicking on the link. The link is available on my page. And so, this is a very important question that we ask ourselves. Since the Me Too movement, where have women begun? Are we far away from where we started, or are we even closer to where we started? So let me just read a brief of this. So 3 years ago, Nigerian Twitter feeds more flooded with Arewa Me Too. I read this because of the Arewa Me Too movement that was started from one of my friend. I think Foshin or so. That's how her Twitter username. She's a big feminist and an Arewa feminist. I met her at Kaba Fest in Kano. I think that was 2019, and I enjoyed her speaking about feminism for northern women. And so when Arewa Me Too was trending, and I saw this article, I said I was going to include it in the material. You can always read the rest, but we can paraphrase some of the comments here. So it's a Hausa word that means the north, and is generally used to refer to the northern part of the country, a region heavily dominated by conservative Islamic religion and culture. The region's societal dynamics have made it incredibly difficult for survivors to come forward with their experiences of sexual and gender based violence. The fear of shame paired with a lack of justice was enough to make survivors a second class. Whether sharing their experiences was worth the repercussion, but the willingness to speak out prevailed. The effort of female Nigerian activists as early as the 1940s created spaces for Nigerian women to protest. I like these articles because of its historical impact, stating that the Nigerian structure for feminism started to gain structure in 1940s. The early 1940s, that is where you talk about the second wave feminism. This was realized in 2019 with Arewa Me Too, and in 2020 when numerous cases of SGBV went viral on social media. And that's so. Like I said, in most cases, online has helped us achieve fourth wave feminism so fast. From second wave feminism to fourth wave feminism, a lot of work has been done. I think I'm going to give an assignment today to talk about what have women overcome. What are the things that you feel like women has overcome during all of the waves of feminism, and how far have we come, and how far are we behind with some of these cases. And so you can pause and read some of these articles, or you can always find it. But we are saying more women have been enlightened, more women do understand, more women are in school, more women have street knowledge on how or what feminism is. And even though we still fight with people who have a timid ideology on what the topic is, we have done more work than we have not. And so you can see feminist coalition and gender equality bills, subtopics like, people like Timi Biroba, who is an African political feminist in Washington, and talked about her own, editorial role in this place. And so, talking about equality and most of these things are so important. You can just read some of these blogs. It makes you understand how you can talk about conversation when it comes to structure, statistics, and how it affects the common woman on the street. And so, back to our slide. Gender equality in Nigeria, where are we 3 years ago and what are we now? It's a question you can ask yourself. And just like I said, how far have we gone and how far back are we? Are more women educated? Yes. Are women still facing domestic violence? Yes, we are. Are women still uneducated? Do we have child marriages? Do we have people being betrothed? Do we have femicide? We have more cases in the digital era. As more economical power is given to women, we begin to see men for who they are, in the sense that when men were the sole providers, women were submissive and could not take more than what is offered to them, and so it made the man, I beg your pardon, to be on the economical advantage. If I am making 10,000 and can I give you 1,000, you are going to reference me. You're going to respect me because I don't have the means to make the money that you made. But in 2010, fourth wave feminism till present, more women are making their money. And because money is not the issue in most cases in the marriage, which men have failed to provide, if we want to go deeper in personal cases, most times men are now showing who they are in personality cases. You will see more egoistic people, narcissistic people. You begin to study trauma patterns. And for now, we have discussions like that is tended to the personal than it was in the second, first wave, and third wave, which is more collective. And so you can think about the collectiveness of the issue. And so, yes, we talk about case studies in our Afrofeminism timetable. You can see that for this class, we're going to be talking about key thinkers. You can switch it. We have done, for people just coming out, we did introduction to um, um, Afrofeminism during the first week, and we talked about historical roots of black feminism. And so today we're talking about intersectionality, race, gender, and class. We're also going to talk about key thinkers like Buchi Emecheta, Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, and Chimamanda Adichie. So we would intertwine the classes, but it's going to span around those two topics today and tomorrow. And so the key thinkers and people who began to structure their work, and we can reference them and say these people believed in this thing and we believe in what these people believe in because it is happening, were people like Buchi Emecheta, people like Chimamanda, and people like Funmilayo. In fact, Chimamanda is an important tool in modern day feminism, in 2010s feminism, which is the fourth wave feminism, because she commonized the word feminism in Africa. She commonized the word feminism in Nigeria. She made it so that even people began to put it in their songs. Some musicians put it in their songs. People say, I don't want feminism. She made it so common that to explain feminism was easier now. Of course, you could face backlash on trying to understand how to put it in words that will make men understand the concept, but feminism was now not a new word to people in Nigeria. People like Bichi Emecheta already started writing before Chimamanda. But when she wrote in disguise. She wrote in a second person plural. It was her personal struggle, but she was dealing with situations at that time that made her not to express herself and say, you know what, I'm dealing with this issue. Her husband was beating her. Her husband was feeding off the fact that she gave birth in London, and her children were UK citizens and they were being paid, so he was not working. And because of that, she was working extra. And when she went to school and started writing, he was abusing her by tearing off her manuscript. She said this in a BBC interview. And The Joys of Motherhood, one of her popular books, if you have not read it, you should read it, is one that reflects how, no, the second class citizen, but The Joys of Motherhood is a book that we all read when we were in secondary school in literature, I believe. And The Second Class Citizen is the best book that you should read about how she was treated. That was her story. And The Second Class Citizen made you believe that a woman was indeed a second class citizen. She was the one that gave birth. She was the one that her children were British citizens. But the money that the government paid was paid to the man's account. And you have to beg for government benefits off from your husband because the money was paid to the husband. And key thinkers like Buchi Emecheta that went forward with writing to script it, to put an evidence to it that these things exist and we are not just hallucinating and it's not different from every woman is so important. Back to class, people like Fumilayo Ransom Kuti were able to study her story last class. She was one of the first people who structured feminism in Nigeria. Fumilayo Ransom Kuti was the founder of the Abeokuta Ladies Club. She was the first woman to go to secondary school and she did her university outside Nigeria. And when she came back, she understood the importance of structure. And that led her to open the Abeokuta Ladies Club. I think in 1929 or so, she was able to found that club. And she went further to fight for the independence of Cameroon and the Nigerian people. She founded the student union government. She founded the first political party, I think NCDC, that had women majority. And she made it so common that women could do whatever they wanted to do. She opened her Abeokuta Ladies Club later that year for market women to join, for other women to join. It was not only for Christian educated women alone when she founded it. And so the zeal to found, the zeal to be a founder, the zeal to understand that women should be empowered, the zeal to speak is what Fumilayo Ransom Kuti stood for. And we are so sad about her end. Her end was what she fought for. Men, soldiered men, armed men came to her house and threw her from her upstairs down floor. And the complication of the surgery made her die few months later. But regardless of how men would treat you, if you stand for your right, you would understand that what she stood for was bigger than she laid her life for it. And it begat people like Fela Kuti who still spoke, and their children are still speaking on behalf of the Nigerian people. And so, if it's in your blood, it's in your blood. I remember talking about genetic misogyny. Sometimes you repeat patterns that you don't know are repeatable because of what has been transferred to your blood. It was Lamarck's theory that said all life begins from a cell. Of course, that is his fundamental theory, but he also said you can acquire traits that you can pass to your offspring from your environment. What that simply means is that if you can learn something from your environment so much that you are good at it, you would give birth to a child that has that skills naturally in them. And so, because of that, if you are a powerful feminist and that is what you fight for and that is what you grow to know, before you understand what you're doing, you have a child that is also pursuing that value. And that is why it's so important that what we know, we stand for and we stand for it consistently and daily. I present to you powerful women like Buchi Emecheta and Chimamanda Ngozi and Fumilayo Ransom Kuti that are powerful women of reference for me and you today, that we are able to see what they have done for us in the sense that they defied all rules, they defied regulations, they defied the things that held women bound at the time that they did exist. And so these powerful women are example that we can do absolutely anything that we want to do. And so I'm going to end my class here. I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. If you have any question, you can ask me. And if you don't, we will look at two materials that I've added here and we'll call it a day.
No questions.
Okay. Onoche, do we have questions?
No questions.
Okay, then we're going to read one of the comments. Why are Nigerian women particularly? Okay, we've talked about this. Different forms of misogyny from patriarchy. Okay, let's see what this is. Okay, this was a material that I saw that I felt like was very important because we cannot define patriarchy and misogyny. It's two different concepts. Misogyny is different from patriarchy, and so this is a very great piece. I think it was just a link that I saw, maybe an excerpt, but it's from the cbpu.ac.in. I think it's a school account. But it talked about feminists refer to three broad forms of misogyny or woman hating. Now, misogyny is categorized into three broad forms by feminists. The first is sexism. Under misogyny, you have number one is sexism. It's a form of hating, oppression, or discrimination, intimidation that is easily identifiable because it relates to pervert behavior. This was a mistake here. Any visible act or speech or attitude or theory which treats women as inferior to men, which disadvantages women to men, and thus subjugates women and what is this? Is thought to be legitimate, then is a form of sexism. When I uploaded this, I did not see all of these. The obtained examples of such sexist references are to be found in the text written by some of the most revered philosophers like Plato, like Aristotle, like St. Augustine, Kant, and Hegel. They are all guilty of sins of this commission. They were able to talk about women in derogatory forms. And so sexism is one of the form of misogyny, which means that you are going to be grouped under what you can give, which is mostly always your sexual organ. So sexism is the outward manifestation that is embedded in a level of discrimination. Number two, we also have patriarchy. It has its root in a deeper and more perennial form of misogyny, which is patriarchy. Patriarchy is the second form of misogyny. In patriarchal institutions and customs, they are conducive to support male supremacy. That is why whenever you want to talk about patriarchy, you cannot remove it from structure. What are the structures that have been in place that have supported men's patriarchal motive, that have supported misogyny? If a man is sexist, what is the structure that have existed and the platform that allowed him even to be sexist in the first place? You don't wake up and sexualize a man. Why don't you have that same power? Now, this presence may not be easily identifiable in a society since it looks like an underlying structure of human behavior. Just what I've said. You cannot take it away from structure. You have to think about the human behavior. It's like a pattern, it's like the code that the society lives with. And if we don't decode it, you cannot really get true liberation. And that is why when I teach about feminism, I talk about what are the ideologies of men. You need to relearn. Oh Lord. Men need to relearn. And the relearning is the constant reminder that we do as feminists. Every day you need to talk about it. Each day you need to make videos, you need to talk about it, you need to teach a man. You need to say it so much that it rethinks their thinking that they have. It's like an embedded code. Men also talk to us all of the time. They made sure that we believe them by constantly backing out the rules. And so, what we can do to change these patriarchal structures that seem like an underlying structure of human behavior is to constantly back out the rules for us. And so, patriarchy has specific roles assigned to men and women. Women are objectified in this social mode. There are different ways of objectifying women. The modes of objectification vary from society to society and from one period of history to another. Exactly. No, in every history there were different forms of objectification. Now we have narcissistic people, sexual demeaning people, racist, rapists. We have domestic violence, and we are still carrying some from the third wave feminism, which is gender based, and genital mutilation, cultural misogyny, which is sacrifices of virgin and treating of a woman. So we still carry over some barbaric cultures also that we are fighting as we fight the digitalization, as we fight on online issues. So for Nigerian women, the fourth wave feminism is an intersection of even fighting for old cultural barbaric laws that do not favor women, and also fighting for the current issues that we have, which include sexism. And so the different ways of objectifying women is one part. What is common to all forms of patriarchy is male supremacy. You need to understand that. It's what is common to all forms of patriarchy. Even in churches, even in the mosque, even in different countries, a man wants to be the head. He wants to be the supreme being. Patriarchy is rooted in men's control of women's productive and reproductive labor. Patriarchy wants to be in charge. That is what it means. Imagine a man saying no to abortion or no to how you should how you should treat yourself as a woman. And so you want to ask, what right does it have to be in women's business? It is patriarchy, because patriarchy is rooted in men's control of women's productive and reproductive labor. It is also patriarchy when it is unnecessarily related to power. Those who have power have the right to control, exactly. And the destiny of those who are powerless is who they seem to get oppression from. So it works on the principle that superiority justifies domination. It's something that you should really hold. Patriarchy works on the principle that when you are superior, you can dominate, you can oppress. And so patriarchy necessarily incorporates and sanctions an unequal distribution of power, which helps maintain the status quo of oppression. And that is it. If you're going to oppress somebody, you cannot oppress somebody who is your mate in power, in energy. But if they were lower than you and you kept them that way, you would easily oppress. And so that is why patriarchy necessarily incorporates and it sanctions an unequal distribution, emphasis on unequal distribution of power so that it can maintain the oppression and it's a status quo for them. So in patriarchy, man is born with a male gender privilege. This advantage is not gained by choice. You get what I mean? Immediately you are giving birth to, a man gets a male gender privilege by his gender. This disadvantage is not gained by choice. Although one cannot be held responsible for having such a privilege, one can be held personally responsible for not doing anything to stop the perpetuation of male gender privilege. That's why I added this material, because when you read it, you can be able to understand a lot of the issues that we talk about. You begin to understand that it's a systemic issue, and domestic violence and all of those things that we talk about on a daily is just one aspect of it. And so, although you cannot say um, I hold you responsible for being a man, but you can hold a man responsible for perpetuating it. You can hold a man responsible for not stopping it. You can hold a man responsible for not intentionally educating himself to understand that the society that he has been brought with is one that discredits women and disfavors women and has given him an economical power because of his gender. You can hold him responsible because he has not stopped to ask himself, why are women not treated as equals? And what is the reason? So an accomplishment in patriarchy is thus guilty of a sin of inaction. And that is when you want to look at it from the law perspective. If you are accomplishing it, if you are part of it, you are guilty of the sin of inaction. That means you are not doing anything. He is collaborating by ignoring women's rightful participation in engineering, in participating in status quo which ignores the status of women. One cannot be guilty on either count, but committing sexist acts or by not resisting sexist acts in philosophy, which means sexist omissions, are caused by not including women's lived experiences in mainstream philosophy. And so this is a very long read, or not really a long read because we stopped at okay. We'll talk about phallocentrism because I really wanted to touch this before we go. Please, we can read this material and it's going to help us. The third type of misogyny is referred to by feminists as phallocentrism. This is a form of discrimination against women at the conceptual level. If sexism is discrimination at the level of speech and action, if sexism is a man reducing you by his words and his action, and patriarchy is a structural oppression that emphasize the oppression of men by unequal distribution of power, then phallocentrism is a discursive series of procedures, which means that it's a form of conceptual practices that is established by argument or reasoning as opposed to intuition. It is what I was telling you, that for us to change the perception of men, we need to change their thinking. It is at a conceptual level, at a brain level. That is why a 15-year-old boy can already have disgust for a woman. That is why a 12-year-old boy can already say, if she's not making her money, like, you are not even, you are a kid. How do you have such ideologies? It has been agreed that there is a sex, gender, transcendent human essence, an essence which is sex, gender, natural. By developing and expressing this essence, men and women can achieve dignity, freedom, and equality. They can also overcome all forms of differences and discrimination. So we're going to talk more of phallocentrism in the next class. Excuse me. In the next class, and then we can dive into the life of Chimamanda, the life of Bucci, and the life of Fumilayo in deeper content, and also to talk about the intersectionality of race, class, and gender. Also, I'll give you assignment for, you will see it in your um, assignment section before today ends, and I will need it turned in by next week. Of course, not tomorrow because it's too short. But by next week, you should be able to give me before class Monday. You should also be able to give me the feedback of the assignment. And so we these materials that we read here now just talked about how you know misogyny can be grouped in three different forms. For me, I think patriarchy is the king of them all because it is a structured way of life that is in our human existence, and sexism is just one form of of misogyny, and is also another way of being under patriarchy. And so this material is very important, and every material that I've added is very important for us to understand deeper the concept of feminism. And so we'll stop here and we can take questions if we have questions. Thank you so much for staying till now.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. My question it's more around like we discuss feminism based on patriarchy, sexism. So like especially in the current world that we live in, where as we're still trying to fight patriarchy and the men that are in full support of it, we still have like women that are willing to back this thing. I mean, I don't know if there's like more education that we can do around this, or like what would you say is your perspective on women that are in support of this, and what would you give like or in your opinion of from real life scenarios, how can this be curbed or helped in the long run? Because it doesn't always have to be until those women experience firsthand that some of these things are against them before they realize, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be fighting against, right? But like, what would you say is a way to help curb this, bring women to more light of this thing you are supporting is rigged against you. You should see this in a better light and whatnot.
In fact, that's a very intelligent question. It's like the more we keep going ahead with this fight, there are women who are perpetuating and actively perpetuating the struggles that we are going through. Truth is, the more we keep talking about it, the more we keep educating, it is how we are going to spread the word. It's like religion. How were they able to spread so fast? They come to your place and they try to convince you. Most times, most of their methods may not be good methods. And now feminism will not go through that method. It is also the advocacy that a woman has a free choice. If you want to stay with an abusive husband, it's your choice. If you want to not go to school, it's your choice. But we're saying that the liberation of women is the truth. And if you don't go through this path, these are the consequences that you would face if you went through the path that you choose. And so more of it is going to be advocacy. The more I talk about it, the more you talk about it, the more Bianojo talks about it, the more everybody talks about what men do that perpetuate some of these femicides and gender-based violence and some of this crime that men do against women. The more women understand, the more women get the understanding that these things can be avoidable, these things can also do from me working on myself, these things can do can has more to do with me decentering men from my life and not making them the supreme structure that society has created them to be. It is more of me. Many things that women are learning now that our mothers did not have the right to learn, and our grandmothers were not even as did not even have access to learn. And so you are joining these classes, you improving that. Beyond just joining these classes, me talking about it is us helping. And the more we bring down the structure, the more we're able to educate, the more we reduce the numbers of women who actively perpetuate these things, the more we are able to push this feminism a message to women and girls and people on the street and even the men themselves that perpetuate this. I think,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, yeah. And that is why I always encourage that do not be shy to identify yourself as a feminist. Do not ever be shy to use your social media to talk about it. Do not be shy to organize women centered topics in churches. Like if you are in church, you're a sisters fellowship, a coordinator, or you're in some sisters group. Always try to see that women are included and women are doing something, and we are you know, and you are educating men, because most times the topics that we have are women centered: how to cook, how to bake, how to be a virtuous woman, nothing like how to be a virtuous man, nothing like how to love my husband. So some of these things are things that we can start doing for us to restructure the ideologies that are gender leaning, the ideologies that make women suffer from. So to me, when I meet a woman who defends patriarchy, I feel like she has so much genetic misogyny that she cannot help herself. She's so much male centered that she cannot help herself, that she's ready to give other women, to put other women under the bus, because she believes that her own ideology is right. And so those women, we need to pray for them. We need to work on their ideology. We need to ensure that whatever we are doing is getting to their doorstep, and is getting to their doorstep consistently. And most times they get the radicalization, and they get the radicalization by experience. They marry men who treat them as second class citizens. They marry men who lower them and devalue them and strip them of their economical power. And most times they cannot complain because of fear of coming online. And so sometimes we create some of this sisterhood group to say, whenever you can come out, you're ready to come out. It's the right time. Don't be scared to come out. Nobody is going to, insult you or bring you down or devalue you or make you feel like less of a person. So we try to create like a welcoming environment for, even if these women try to bash the movement, we try to say we are welcoming, we love you, because we know what men can do and what men are capable of. And sometimes some women just need to learn by experience. And of course, not all women need saving. The ones that we can save, we would save. The ones that we cannot save, they will be drawn. And so we don't pray for any woman to be drawn by the activities of men, and God would, in fact, show his mercies on women who are struggling daily. It's just beyond pathetic at this point that a woman is a statistic to femicide, it's a statistic to marital rape, it's a statistic to a lot of issues that happen. And so let's end this class with the fact that, okay, we're right on time, with the fact that more advocacy needs to be done, more awareness needs to be created, and people need to understand that we need change, especially in these sectors. And so, Francis,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I hope I was audible enough and you guys understood what was taught today.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. God bless you. And see you tomorrow in class.
All right. See you tomorrow. Take
Yeah,
care.
bye.